witnessing greatness right now because this is the first in a series, comic book series, and we got my main man, my main friend, Double H from Calico Comics, Sigma Comics, ladies and gentlemen, right here in the flesh. This man here, ladies and gentlemen, you know how to sell out on those cards, man. They just be flying off the shelf, man. And people need to know these secrets. How you doing, my friend?
Doing very well, Fatal J. Thanks for having
Yes,
me on and having me kick off your series there. Very honored.
Well, this is the thing, brother. Whenever Wes, when he does invite me, he invite me at the wrong times, man. You know. But he did ask me recently to come on his show. So that was my fault. The timing was wrong, but I'm gonna be back. But this is what I noticed about being on Thinking Critical. I used to see you all the time in the chat, grinding, promoting, and I had to find out myself what was Sigma Comics, Calico Comics all about. I had to know, you know?
Right.
Yes, sir. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to take it all the way back. You know, I want to know the origins behind Double H. I want to know the origins of Calico Sigma Comics. Let me know the origins, man. How did you get this love for the comic book world? Where did you get this love for wanting to start your own company and let people know about this powerful message that goes on with your company? Let's start from the beginning, man. How did it all start?
All right. Well, it started in the advent of COVID. Obviously, that was a big traumatic situation that happened globally. And I was dating a chick at the time, and you know, that was sort of my stilo. I was this playboy thousandaire in New York City, you know, single, former pro athlete. I was a boxer, an MMA fighter back in the 90s, art school, you know, graduate as well. So it was very unique, sort of sophisticated guy. And basically, you know, we did this whole ceremony because in the park, because we had to be like distance and people couldn't really get together and socialize. So we did this park, this socially distant thing where, you know, we were all spread out, and she had just gotten a book deal. She was a writer for Simon Schuster. She got a book deal, Simon Schuster. And she said, "Hey, HH, why don't you get your novel off the shelf? You've been thinking about this character that you've been telling me about." I said, "Yeah, it might be a good time for me to do that because there was everything was shut down. There's nothing you could do." Yeah. I was training for some fights. One regret I had as a former pro athlete is, despite the fact that I got to the highest level of my sport, which is a championship, I never won a championship. You could actually see some of my trophies in the back.
So excuse my French.
Right.
Before you start kicking ass in comics, you was kicking ass. You know.
I was kicking ass, Fatal J. You know.
Yes, sir. Respect, man.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, you know, and all my fights were canceled. You know, so I had this idea for this book. Again, this was a book. It was a novel, not a comic book series. So as I started playing around with the outline for the novel, it occurred to me that the character, the protagonist, Hector, really lent himself as a really wonderful comic book anti-hero. And I could see a series, a comic book series. And the more I developed the outline, the more it became clear to me that, hey, you know, this sounds good as a comic book series. Let me try it that way. And sure enough, the issues just kept popping. You know, it just kept popping out. And that's what it started. It started as a comic book series. You know, before that, or I should say as part of that process, before I put out my very first issue, my idea was to reach out to my alma mater, School of Visual Arts in New York City, and, you know, just see who was in charge of, you know, cartooning, see if maybe they could help me with a new student that had graduated, needs a little money. And, you know, there'd be a nice, affordable way to get the comic book started and also help out a young graduate who needs, you know, a job for cartooning.
So hold on, wait, man, because you dropping some serious bombs, man, and this is awesome.
Yeah.
So you said that now this is different from what I hear in the comic book world with people origins and how they get the startup money. So you went to your alma mater, you went to your college.
Right.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I wanted to give these young cats, you know, a chance coming out of school. And, you know, a lot of these kids are very talented. Think about this. You're dropping tens of thousands of dollars, to be educated by some of the best, creators in the world, right? So why don't I pique the brain of these guys and gals and see what they got going on? And at the same time, obviously they're not going to make the top salary right off, right as soon as they're graduating school. So why not put a few, dollars in their pocket, get them excited about a new project? And as I was looking at the faculty, I saw a very, very big name that I recognized right away. And of course you'd recognize, and that was Klaus Janson. And he was on faculty. So I said, oh my goodness. I said, let me reach out to this guy, and see what's going on with him. And, maybe even try to get him on the book and see what he's got going on. Of course, that was a pipe dream. So I reach out to him and say, hey, I see your name here. Obviously a big fan. I haven't read comics, in a while, since I was a teenager, Fatal J. This is something that the audience should know also. I hadn't read comic books since I was a teenager. Okay, yes, I just got back into it because the girlfriend, the chick I was dating, said, "Hey, get this thing going." So I converted the thing into a comic book series, and it was in that moment that I had engaged comics since I was a teenager. So Klaus Janson, I reached out to him. His email was on there. So in about a week, I didn't hear anything back, anything. I said, oh, man, he probably forgot about me. A week later, he reaches out to me. He said, yeah, HH, no problem. Here's my number. He gave me his mobile number. Give me a call. Yeah. Let's talk about your Calico character. Sounds really interesting. Let's chat. And from that moment on, Klaus Janson very, very thoughtfully and caringly gave me enormous guidance. I mean, you should have seen the Calico the way it looked before Klaus looked at it. He gave me great mentoring and guidance. And it was thanks to that guidance that really the Calico looks as polished as he does now. So,
and see, that's what a lot of people overlook too. They try to dive in,
right,
and think, okay, I know this stuff. This is easy. No, man, I like how you said that. You got advice. You had a mentor.
Right.
That's how you should do it, man. Hey,
right.
I'm right now in a college course where we got to learn about research papers and all that. And one of the most important things that this course teaches is that you need somebody to look over your work, because in your mind, you think, okay, this is dope, this is amazing, but you need to go to a pro or to a professor or somebody who's an editor and just really know how things go, how things flow. So that's really good that you went that route to have him look at your work.
Absolutely. I mean, and just to clarify, I love comics, and I've always been in comic book culture and life since the 80s, since I was a kid. So it's just that I hadn't touched the comic book since I started going to school and fighting, because it took a lot of time. I was going to school and I was a professional athlete at the same time. So I had literally no time. It was just work, train, eat, sleep.
I'm gonna tell you what else it is too. Because I did that too. I started off real hard in comics, then I kind of fell off, and then I'm back hard on it again. But the girls, man, the girls, you know what I mean?
Right. That's you're right on your spot.
Yeah.
That'll take some time away from the comics. Absolutely, no doubt.
Do you have a favorite artist or a favorite writer when it comes to comic books?
No doubt, and it's a great question. So my favorite artist, without a doubt, is Todd McFarlane. I mean, he was just. I remember. I was in the Dominican Republic, so I'm Dominican, Fatal J.
Yes, sir.
So you know what that means. I'm a mixed brother. Okay, so I got the African in my blood. Okay,
yes, sir.
So the reason I bring that up is because we have this wonderful holiday that just passed, Juneteenth, and I think we were supposed to do this on Juneteenth, the video. But much respect, and of course the Caribbean culture. In the Dominican Republic, my father made it a mission to always come back to, because I spent some time in the DR being educated there as well. So even though I was born here in America, I spent some years in the Dominican Republic. And one of those years, I was 13 years old. My father brought back from America. Okay, I was going to school. I was 13. I was in the 8th grade. My father showed up to the house, okay, from America with 3 comic books. And one of them was Amazing Spider-Man number 2. I think it was 298 or 299, the one with Venom, the first appearance. And it was also Todd McFarlane. I think it was his first or second appearance as a artist on Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And I was absolutely blown away. I had never seen anyone draw Spider-Man that way. I was used to, like John Romita, Senior, and I forgot who it was. There were a couple of artists there that was sort of moonlighting and doing a few things, but I had never seen anything like what Todd McFarlane
The way
did.
he was sitting on that web, I don't think to this day anybody could beat that.
Unbelievable. I was blown away. My 13-year-old Dominican ass in the Dominican Republic, and you should have seen my friends when they saw that. Because they, in the Dominican Republic, we call comic books paquitos. Okay, paquitos. We have so many terms for comic books. And we call them paquitos. In Mexico, it's historietas. And a lot of in fact, all of our comic books, listen to this. This is a lesson for you guys out there who don't know about this. But this is very important. In Latin America, we have a very big and growing comic book market as well. But a lot of them come from Mexico. So they're called historietas. Okay. And in Spain, they're called tebeos. There's so many different terms for comics. But all of the comics I read as a kid, that's another thing. I read comics in Latin America and in America. And there were different heroes and characters there. So I have a very rich sort of upbringing with comics. But none of us had ever seen anything like this before, Fatal J. My favorite comic book in Latin America was a guy named Kaliman. Kali Man. Okay, this guy, he had a big old ruby in the middle of his turban. He was like a Middle Eastern guy.
Kaliman.
Yeah, Kaliman.
Yeah.
Oh man, it was hilarious, man.
Okay.
But that juxtaposition between the Todd McFarlane Spider-Man and Kaliman, holy crap. These kids were like, let me at this thing, So Todd McFarlane, the writer, in terms of the artist, in terms of writer, I would have to say Frank Miller, no doubt. Frank Miller.
No doubt.
He was just, he's
the
very
best, man.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you read my my Calico Street Math, this bad boy right here.
Okay, let me blow you up. Hold on.
Yeah, there you go. That's my bad boy here, Calico Street Math. This is the first trade, and by the way, I just got this one. Here's another one. This one just came out this past weekend.
Oh, that look dope.
Reality play. These two, very, very inspired by, Frank Miller's my favorite writer. Very street, very edgy, very urban, very textured writing.
Let's just break down real quick Calico, the universe. Let's just take a dab at it. I don't mean to throw you off, but so Frank Miller is your influence.
Right.
And I noticed you said street. I noticed Frank Miller loves the street aspect of the superhero world. So is that kind of where you got a lot of your influence when it comes to Calico?
Sure. And one other very big and probably the one I write like the most is Mike Barron, who's my mentor.
Mike Barron.
Mike Barron's Punisher. I mean, as a kid I like Spider-Man, but as an adolescent, it was all Punisher for me. I love the Punisher. It's probably my favorite title next to Amazing Spider-Man and all the Spider books. But Mike Barron and Mike Barron and Frank Miller, those two writers. So yeah, to answer your question, from the get-go, we have different types of writers, Fatal J. I'm what you call more of an experiential writer. You see that in wars. A lot of these guys come back from war, and they keep a diary, and they develop that process of writing down their thoughts and experiences. So for me, I got into a lot of fights, Fatal J. I grew up. You could probably tell it in my accent. I grew up in an Italian neighborhood in the Bronx. Okay.
Oh yeah.
If you ever watch The Sopranos, that's how I grew up, man. I was the only, Latino kid in the neighborhood. Yeah. And it was rough, but brother, I fought a lot in the streets, in alleyways and street parking lots, on fields, baseball fields, football fields, on rooftops. I grew up in the Bronx, and let me tell you something. When you grow up in the kitchen, you learn how to cook, and that's
yes,
my
experience. You need to. That's a bar. You need to make that a shirt too.
It is, baby. I mean, I grew up hot. Okay, I mean, I grew up. I'm not even joking you right now. Sometimes I fought 2-3 times a day, and that was like a normal thing for me. So that by the time I was already, you know, a teenager, you know, people were coming up to my family, listen, you better get this kid like in a boxing gym or something. Because in high school, you might not tell here because, you know, we're doing the chest up or whatnot, but, you know, they thought I was on steroids. I went to an all boys Catholic school in the Bronx and, in Westchester, which is right. It was right there. It was like 10-minute drive. But the priest had my folks come in and they said, listen, we think your kid is on steroids or something because he's this big muscular guy and he's getting into these fights. You got to let's see what's going on with this kid. Of course, I wasn't on steroids. But what it was is I was a very physical kid. Because you grow up doing this, it's like the gymnasts. People are always shocked when they see gymnasts. They're like, holy crap, you know, these guys don't lift weights, but their bodies look like bodybuilders or something. And what it is it's a daily practice, a daily routine. When you're doing this so much and so frequently, your mind, your body, you're honed. It's like the Spartans, you know, from birth, you're trained to do this.
Yeah.
You know? So,
that's interesting you saying this, man, because this is painting a big picture to the puzzle of Sigma Comics. Because when I look at the covers of Calico, okay, the first thing that come in my mind, he's a brawler.
Right.
I got that brawler vibe from him. He got the bandage just like the boxers around him, you know. Right. So let's speak on this real quick. Calico, Sigma Comics. Is Sigma Comics a big universe, or Calico is the main focus of Sigma Comics?
Yes and yes. So, you know, Sigma Comics is a universe, and there are other characters, very important ones that, you know, we're also developing as well. And it's all falling under the Sigma Comics universe. And Calico is, you know, the main character in that universe. And, you know, the character comes from, as I mentioned, from my experiences growing up in the Bronx and now, you know, living in the city and, you know, having all of the city flavors, Brooklyn, Bronx, Queens, Staten Island, Shaolin, you know, it's that woo. Shaolin, and that's there you go. Baby. There you go. Wu-Tang, baby. Yeah, and that's what it is, you know. It's that 2 for $5. It's that under the bridge ish. It's that 1990 ish. You know, when you live it, you know it, and it's entertaining, man. There's never a dull moment. They call this the city that never sleeps.
Yeah,
and this is home of comics. This is comic book ground zero. This is 101. This is Mecca. You know, so you know, you can call it Gotham, whatever you want. This is where it all comes from. And this is real here, you know, and like I said, if you go back to the birth of comics, who were writing these comics? These old little Jewish dudes, you know, growing up in the streets of New York. They were immigrants. They were getting into fights. They were picked on. They went to war. They had all these rugged experiences, and through their imaginations and their, you know, creativity, birthed all these incredible characters. And that lineage, that history, that culture they created, you know, lives on through all of us. Doesn't matter where you're from, what background, what color, how tall you are, how short you are, it doesn't matter. You know, that lifeblood is here, that energy. And, you know, because, you know, this is one of the great things about America. There's so many great things. This is one of the great things about America is once you birth this here, it has a current and a currency that is intrinsic to the culture, and it's all over the country now. Doesn't matter, you know, I say New York, it could be in Louisville, it could be in St. Louis, it could be in Chicago, it could be in San Diego, it doesn't matter. But now you're an American and you feel that, you know what it's like to be a New Yorker, even though you haven't stepped foot here, because you taste our flavor is in the blood, it's in the water everywhere. That's why you can have that bagel in St. Louis. You could have that bagel in Alaska or and you know, man, that's in New York. That's that flavor, you know.
I plan to be in New York for Comic-Con.
You better stop by my booth. There's gonna be trouble.
Okay. I'll definitely be there. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You're gonna walk away with your hands full.
Yes, sir. But going back to Calico though.
Yes, Calico.
Right. So based off what you told me, all the things about New York, being in the city, your past. Is you putting all that into the Calico Sigma universe?
Yes, two things on that, Fatal J. Lately, there's this thing going around about self-inserts and how bad that is. I 100% agree with that when it's a culture, excuse me, a character that doesn't belong to you, right? You're going to take a character from Marvel and DC and then you're going to throw your own experiences into the character and then call it Batman or Spider-Man. That's a horrible thing to do, and I 100% agree with the sentiment. I do think that it's great to have different voices and visions to hold the character by the hand and steer him or her in new directions based on your own experiences. That's wonderful. But to put yourself in the character and then call it Batman, no, that's just silly. That said, if it's your own character creation, as in my case, in Hector Gill, the Calico, I mean, my initials are HG, so are Hector Gill's, the Calico.
I like that.
There's a reason for that. The character is me. You know, he absolutely is me. And my idealized version of myself and what I would do were I capable of doing it in this society, because obviously what Hector does, the Calico, is illegal. He goes after people who abuse and kill animals, and he murders them, and in great spectacular fashion. I can't do that. Obviously, I'd get arrested, and I'd be living, in prison. But it's a fantasy revolving around an idealized version of myself in an idealized version of an atmosphere that allowed me to do something like this. The Calico.
Hold on, you dropping bombs right now. You dropped the ball, man. You said this, and I definitely believe in this. Don't take Batman, don't take Spider-Man, and put your thoughts, your political, your whatever in that character, because that character is already beloved. Countless of stories throughout the years.
Right.
We have this idea of who Batman is, Spider-Man is, so you can't do that. But I feel like you're exactly right, because self-inserts get a bad rep when it comes to indie comics. Sure. But I believe there's nothing wrong with it, like you too, that as long as it's an original character, you can do anything with an original character.
Right.
Because the people don't know the character. They're getting used to the character. They're learning about the character. They're learning about the world of the character.
Two things, Fatal J.
You said that.
Yeah, two things, Fatal J. One, look at the probably the best comedy sitcom ever, Seinfeld. That was a self-insert. That was Larry David putting himself into a character, George Costanza. And even though the focus is Seinfeld, right? The central characters, right, it's not just Seinfeld, it's Costanza, and the other characters, Elaine and Kramer and all this, right? So it's a self-insert. Well, you could throw in your experiences, but it has to be your creation, because then you're telling what is called a pure creative artistic story. It knows no bounds, because it's your imagination, your experiences, and your creation that is totally unique, that people are now seeing, right? Batman, as you pointed out, Spider-Man, Superman, these characters have generations of back history, backstory, and audiences that have also added to the texture of those characters. Here you have some of the greatest artists that ever lived work on these characters, and then you have buy-in and feedback from the audience. Remember, these were business people. Marvel and DC were actual businesses, okay, before they became the monstrosities that they are now, okay, the perversions that they are now. And what happens, Fatal J, when you have a business? You listen to the customer. You see what works, what doesn't work. This was A/B testing at its finest, okay?
Yeah.
And through these mechanisms, through the feedback, through the great talent of these artists and writers, okay, you have these tremendous brands, these multi-billion-dollar brands that we know now with Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. It's going to go into a different conversation. So I'll keep it at that you really have to take characters and make them what, characters, listen to this, Fado J, and your audience. This is the most important thing you need on all this right now.
Speak out.
Characters, and any writer, any really good writer will tell you, characters create themselves once you have the proper foundation. Okay, once you got those pillars that are nice and strong, they create themselves, so that when an artist comes, when a writer comes, all they're doing is steering. They're not
Hold on, real quick. Real quick,
right.
You dropped another bar. Say, I gotta stop, man, because you be dropping bars, you be dropping bombs after bombs. I'm telling you, man, I'm in this writing course, man. And that's the key. You got to have that strong foundation, man.
Right.
It's kind of like that a biblical verse where Jesus said, have a house on sand or build a house on rock.
Right.
See, you can throw anything at that house on the rock. But if that house on sand, if you got a weak foundation, your character not gonna take off.
Bingo. Bingo. So well said, Fatal J. And that's what we're doing right here. You know, this right here is like a dynamic hip hop rap team right here, what we're doing. You know, I'm throwing something out and you're taking it to another level. That's what really good vibing is. Okay. When you got a good soup that you're putting together and you got the nice piece of fish, or you got the plantains and the oregano and the sauce, the olive oil, all those things are coming together. And that's when you have a good video, a good story, a good meal, okay, a good game. All those things are important. And that's what a great writer does. That's what a great artist does. All they're doing is steering because they have a great character that has a fantastic foundation. And it took time, sweat, effort, lots of sleepless nights, lots of coffee, lots of, ripped up and thrown in the garbage papers, pizza, all those things that happen are extremely important. And, like I said, when you have a really good character like that, all you have to do is guide them and the stories will write themselves. But when you have a creation, a character creation like Calico that doesn't have a lot of history, that's what we're doing now. We're laying down the groundwork, we're putting down the foundation, and it's not enough to have a really good, solid character. With the Calico, you have to put that character in a place, in an atmosphere, in a textured environment with textured characters that have their own problems, and in that environment, the character can then, mature and develop, and the reader can see how the character responds to his or her environment, and how he or she or they interact with the other characters. It's not enough to have a great character. You have to take that character and put them in a great environment with equally rich characters, so that he or she or they can play off of each other and develop and mature. And this is if you don't have a foundation or a history like these other characters. So that's what we're doing right now, Fatal J, in the Sigma Comics universe. We have not only Hector Gil the Calico, but we have a surrounding cast, a supporting cast of great characters.
Yes, sir, man. And I can't wait to dive into that universe. Now, let me ask you a question.
Right.
How do you promote Calico? Because I seen one way you promote. I see you in Thinking Critical. And you always, I could tell you believe in your brand, you believe in your comments, and when you send that super chat, you be like, bam, Calico, Sigma Comics is going to be at so and so convention. I take notes on stuff like that.
Very important. Very important.
So how do you distribute? How do you promote your comic book company?
So there's several ways. The main way we do it is through conventions, and that's because we firmly believe, especially for a brand new brand, we firmly believe in the one-on-one, face-to-face, handshake sale. This is how we best educate our customer base. Remember this, Fatal J, because think about this. You take our comic book and you throw it in a comic book shop. Who's going to talk about it? Who's going to know what that is? You got to pick it up. I'm
glad you said that. I've been feeling like that for so long. And don't get me wrong, I love the shops. I really do.
Right.
But when I take notes from people like Stan Lee and Todd McFarlane, those guys are businessmen. Those guys are salesmen. I mean, when you see Stan Lee get on the TV screen and be like, Excelsior, ladies and gentlemen, hello, boys and girls, that's not putting on that salesman. You know what I mean?
Yep. Absolutely.
You talk to the people, get them energetic, get them hyped, Don't just say, here's my comic book shop. There you go.
Right. Yeah, no, it's the salespeople at a comic book shop. Think about this, Fair J. You got hundreds of comics, you got hundreds of characters. What makes you think that Joe Schmo from down the block comic book shop is going to put your character and your comic above the rest. So we knew that from the beginning, that we weren't going to get a lot of respect at the comic shop. So yeah, we have a distribution, but our number one bread and butter is the conventions, and that's why we do 30 plus conventions a year.
And bro, you always killing it. Because when I look at the pictures after you get done, I always see that little white tab that says sold out. You know?
Yeah.
I love it. I don't see nobody else doing that but you. And to me, that's dope promotion. You know what I mean?
It's advertising, right?
Sigma Comics sold out. You know,
right? You know, Fatal J. That's important. And for you indie creators, if there's any indie creators out there in the audience, we absolutely do what Fatal J just said. So we created a sold out banner. Okay, and we put that banner it's a 4-foot banner that goes right across our table, so that on Sundays, you know, you try to buy comics from us, you're not going to find them. You know, and that in and of itself serves as an advertisement that, hey, these guys they got something important, they got something special here. And we always have a QR code on the table banner so that they can say, all right, well, we couldn't find the comics. Now let's scan the QR code and get on all of our socials, the Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. And I recommend it to all you guys as well. So number one, conventions for us. Number two, our email marketing through our website. We do a lot of business through our website. We do lots of email marketing. Again, what do we get at their conventions? We get email addresses. Okay. So that's where we get the email addresses to do the email blast that we do on a regular basis. And we say, hey, we got this new comic in, and boom, you need it. And then we get sales through the website. Number two, we have Kickstarter. Number three, Kickstarter. We use Kickstarter not only as a way to sell comics, but also as a marketing tool, because a lot of these people never heard of Here Comes Calico. So they're, searching through Kickstarter. Oh, look at this comic. It looks pretty cool. Let me check that out. Boom. Now you got a new customer. We don't do a lot of business through there. We'll do 5, 6, 7,000. I think our latest campaign, we just did 7K on it. But listen, it goes to the printing of the comics, right? And paying the artists. So, and then number 4 would be the comic shops. We distribute. Diamond is our distributor. Unfortunately, they had a bankruptcy and they just came out of it through a sale. So that's going to take a little while for that to, get going again. Yeah. But so, between those 4, and, we do other things we have locally. We also do, we're in New York City. So we approach dozens of bodegas, corner stores, smoke shops, vapor shops, all these places. We put our comics in there, and we have a nice, thankfully, again, we live in New York. So it's a very big, it's the largest metro in America. So we can get away with doing stuff like this. But listen, there's no reason why you guys can't do it either, right? So if you live in anywhere, go ahead.
I hate because you always cooking and dropping balls. But I call what you doing, you got the octopus of success. Okay, right. You got so many ways of how you putting out your comic books. And when one get chopped off, like let's just say when you spoke on Diamond, when one gets chopped off, okay, we still got these other legs right here, these other arms, and who knows, other arm can grow back when we found something new. Might be another distributor, who knows? But I love how you don't just stop at crowdfunding, because you have a lot of creators out there. Their only means to an end is crowdfunding and YouTube. I love how you actually putting boots on the ground and going to tattoo shops, bodegas, grocery stores. I mean, you will be surprised when you go to these businesses, especially these mom and pops, and say, hey, I think we'll both benefit if my comic book was right here. We make a 50-50 split or whatever split you want to make. You'll be surprised these people say yes. You just got to get out there,
Amen. 100%. And that was the thinking, Fatal J. The thinking was, how can we get as many arms and as many tentacles, if you will, as you mentioned, out there? Because you're going to have problems. One of those might get tangled up. So you got to make sure that you have other ones. Like you pointed out, Diamond. Look at Diamond now, right? So that's not our main, it never was our main revenue source. So as a result of that forward thinking, that approach, we have other revenue sources. And it's not just that, those 4 I mentioned. We have other things like, we decided, hey, we're in New York City. What's the most popular food in New York City? Pizza, right? The Turtles, right? So We created a Calico pizza box. I kid you not. The Calico in big, here comes Calico, all the comics, on the pizza box, like the individual little comic cubes, and where to get it, sigmacomics.com. New York City's favorite anti-hero, and you see him with a big pizza, right? Having a big pizza there, and all the pizza shop owners are like, holy crap, this is great. So we got we printed up like 10,000 boxes and went through all the pizza shops in our area, and they were giving out their pizza boxes with pizzas in them with the Calico. We had a bunch of people come and get them that way with the QR code on the website buying comics. So you have to always A, B, C, D test, because you never know what's going to be a big hit. As long as you have it in
outside the box, man, because I swear, now, I'm not going to put any names out there, but it's the guy I know in the indie world. Great artist. Right. One of his titles is something to do with pizza. Okay. And pizza. I promise you, I suggested that. I said, man, it will be dope if you came out with a pizza box for this character. Because I was thinking about when the Ninja Turtles recent movie came out.
Right.
And they promotion was on the Pizza Hut. And I said, bro, that would be a dope idea for you. No, it's too much. No, man, come on, at least try.
You got to try it.
What's the worst that can happen? It fails, but at least you tried, though.
Yeah, I'll tell you exactly what it cost us. It cost us $3,000, but we got 5,000 boxes, and we get, think about that. Think of the impression cost there. It cost us $3,000, but we got 5,000 boxes. We went to dozens of pizzerias. We got a big response, tons of people signing up to our mailing list. These are people that we're now selling. Our average sale on our website, I think, is just under $20, right? So I think it's something like 17 or something like that. So you're telling me that if we get, a 2%, 3%, 4% response on an average sale of, $17, listen, that paid for itself within the first, month. So you have to think outside of the box, and if it stops working, all right, well, you try something else, or you keep at it until you get something that really works well, or you make your entry point low enough that the cost is no longer $3,000. It's now $1,200 or $1,300. The more you do of something, the more affordable it becomes for you. The entry point is always the most expensive, Fatal J. And that goes with anything.
True. That's
the
true.
more you do of something, the more you bring the cost down. So
yeah, I love that, man. Now you mentioned your number one is conventions.
Yes.
How many years have you been going to conventions?
So we started at the tip end of 2021. We only did like 2 or 3 conventions. And that's where we started doing it. Our first convention.
You said only 23? Man, that's amazing, man.
Well, 2021, I think we did like 3 conventions. And
okay, gotcha.
Yeah. And then so 2022 was our first year where we actually did conventions. And we did 45 that year. I kid you not.
Wow.
45 conventions. Think about it. We got 52
Bro, you're not
weeks.
playing.
No,
you're not playing, bro. And see, this is another thing too. I'm not gonna put nobody on blast. Right. But when I look at like these big guys that's in this indie world,
sure,
I'm thinking, y'all got the audience. Take these books and go all over the country.
Oh yeah.
Come up with your own little tour.
I'm a Gen Xer, okay? I grew up listening to Big Daddy Kane, baby. No half stepping. All right, ain't no half step. You can't half step.
Yeah.
Okay. You cannot half step. If you're gonna go, listen, you're gonna go into an industry, a multi-billion-dollar industry. You better make sure that you do it right. Now, obviously, the comic book industry, I said multi-billion dollars. It is, but barely. And that's only because of the poor work that Marvel and DC have been putting out over this past couple of decades. And by work, I don't just mean the comics. I just mean the forward thinking, the business process, that kind of work. Because they really have dropped the ball. There's no reason, Fatal J. There's no reason at all.
Speak on
that. There's no reason. Listen to this. There's no reason at all that Ghost Machine shouldn't be a name that everybody in America doesn't recognize. There's no reason.
Thanks.
And the only reason that's the case is because comics is at a state where lots of mismanagement has caused the industry to be at a lower place than it was 20, 30, 40 years ago.
I agree.
Okay. So these comics that are coming out of Ghost Machine, chef's kiss. Okay. And I say this as a creator myself. You got to respect quality. I think we're doing a great job. There's no reason we shouldn't be. Calico shouldn't be a household name, frankly.
You're getting there, though. You're going to get there because you got the drive, bro. I know a lot of indie creators, and I rarely hear talk like you do. I hear a few others, but most of them is convenient being behind that computer screen and just relying on Kickstarter and Indiegogo. And don't get me wrong, that's Ninja Blast, my comic book. That's how I got out there. But I understand if I want to grow this brand, I got to get in those shops. I got to talk to my local newspaper. I got to talk to my local news station. You know what I mean? Because, I mean, you can't be scared if you want to take it to the next level, like your Todd McFarlane's, your Frank Miller's. And we live in the internet world, man. We don't need all those middlemen and stuff no more. You know?
Right.
You know?
Yeah, you got to get out. I'm gonna give you a couple points myself, and there's I'll tell you for us, we've been on the news. We go all around the country. Now it's around the world because we just came back from London from last month.
Wow.
And did really well there. So everywhere we go, we're either selling out or selling a crap ton of heavy poundage, comic books. We measure our sales in poundage, not in books. So I always travel with at least 140 pounds of comics, and that's because we're capped at 70 pounds Delta. We're premium flyers, so we get like an extra 20. Usually it's 50 pounds, so we get an extra 20, and we bring multiple bags, boxes. Luggage. So we always travel with minimum 140 pounds of comics. If we're in your city, we minimum have 140. And think about that in 3 days: Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the average convention, right? Yeah, we're selling hundreds of pounds of comics in just 3 days. How is it that a comic book shop can sell our books in the same way? And it's because, as I mentioned, you got to be your best salesman. And like you pointed out, you can't be behind a keyboard. You got to be out there shaking hands in different cities, it's like a Fader J. We approach this militaristic. We got F-2 bombers, okay? We got those B bombers going out in different cities. We're dropping 100-pound bombs all across the country, the world, and we're going to own your city with our comics. That's the way we think about it. You got to have a approach, and that's how we got a Vince Lombardi.
Well, that's that fighter's mentality too.
That's right, absolutely. That's
a
fighter's mentality. Go ahead.
I believe God. Some people say the universe, but He shaped you for this, man. This was your purpose. Because what I love about Calico, what I love about Sigma, is you got a message.
Right.
So everything you went through in that Italian part of New York, that Italian neighborhood,
right?
It made you ready for this. It was building you up for this,
Oh yeah.
You got a message. People is reading that message. Man, you fulfilling your purpose in life, brother. I can tell you passionate about it.
That's for sure. I can tell you that's for sure. You got to live. You got to believe in what you're selling, man. If you don't believe in what you're selling, then you're doing the wrong thing. You got to put some cold water on your face, and call it a wrap, because this is for real for us. And it's everybody who's going to work for us has the same mentality. We it's not just me. We have a team. So I tell everybody, listen, you're going to work with me. You have to have the same mindset. We have to win. Winning isn't even an option. That's a guarantee. You know what I'm saying? Like it's the stuff that gets to it. The elements of the win that we're focused on, and we have to make sure we're doing them with as high a quality as possible. Okay, because then we're doing the right thing by the customer and by ourselves. You got to believe in what you do, and you're fulfilled. That's what life is all about, man. You got to live. As I'm looking at this wonderful video, I see these incredible bursts of light, slowly drifting into space. And that's exactly what existence is, man. It's all random, but every now and then you get that small little bit of fire that's got this incredible energy. And it has its own little energy that it's radiating and creating. And you have enough of that, it's going to attract other ones. And what happens is when you attract anything, it absorbs and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And now you got a world that you created in the universe. Okay. Some of them are random, but not all of them. Okay. Not all of them. And that's how you create universes. And that's the beauty of life and existence, because you can make it your own. If you do a little more than just float and exist, and you take initiative and drive, you can pop outside of that randomness and become conscious. Once you have that consciousness, then you're awake in the universe and you see everything and you can do beautiful things, So yeah, you got to grab the day, baby.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I definitely believe that, man. I'm getting inspired, motivated by your words. I'm gonna ask a couple of more questions.
Yeah, man.
And then we're gonna head on out. This is the first one. So with all these conventions that you've been to, what is some things that you learned from going to the conventions?
Well, the first thing is the importance of listening. Okay, we do a lot of selling, and our selling is pretty aggressive. We tell the prospect, because remember, they're not a customer yet. We tell the prospect, first we ask them, listen, do you read comics or manga? Because we have both. We're very unique in that sense. We have two things. We don't just have comics. So we ask them, hey, do you read comics or do you have manga? Do you read manga? And they'll let us know. If that's the case in either direction, we tell them why our character is very compelling and why it's worth their time. Our character gets intel on people who abuse and kill animals. And when he gets that information, it's going to be an interesting, entertaining read for you. So you got to sit back and it's worth your $2.50 on the comic book end or your $7.99 on the manga end, because we got great prices. Our comics aren't $15, $20. They're $2.50 on a convention. They're $2.99 on our website, but at the convention it's $2.50.
And that made, I can tell that made a complete difference,
right?
When you at the conventions, because people gonna grab that $2 book, regardless.
Big time, big time. Think about this,
because they don't see prices like that,
Right. Think about this, Fatal J. Everything's by design for us. You're walking in, you just paid $70 for a day at MegaCon. All right, and now you only got one day there because you couldn't afford the $300, whatever, $280 weekend pass. So you said, all right, let me spend $80 on this day pass, and all you see is $10, $15, $20 comics, and all of a sudden you walk by this big glaring booth with this $2.50 thing. Holy crap. And that character right next to it that looks incredible. All right, this guy looks like he's
and not to mention, I love, man, I'm telling you, I take notes when it comes to you. I love your setup too when it comes to your booth. But continue, brother.
Yeah. It's a really fun setup. And listen, what do we do on the setup? Just to expand on what you just brought in. Our setup has two primary colors, okay? Yellow and black. Did you know that yellow and black are the two most contrasting colors in existence? Do you know that? That's why they make the hazard street road signs, highway signs, yellow and black. There's a reason for that. Okay, so those are the colors that we choose for our booth. It's black and yellow. Now we have black and gold, which is obviously an offshoot of the yellow, right? Gold, yellow. Yeah. So that's the reason we do that, Fido J. And if you go into any convention center, typically the walls are surrounding walls. When you actually zoom out, you think it's black. It's not black, but because of the way these convention centers are lit, you think it's, well, I'm in a big black, convention center. But really what it is it's a big room that's intentionally darkened and lit up individually in certain areas so that you can go to those areas and buy. So that's what you're experiencing. And in that environment, which really is space, because that's what space is a dark environment that's lit up, right? In that environment, you have a gold and black booth that really pops with a $2.50 price point with a character that screams, whoa, this is really cool. We get droves of people coming to our booth. So I'm giving you all this knowledge. And you say, holy crap, how is HH? Why is he telling you all this? And it's he's giving away all his secrets. No, folks and guys and beloved guys and gals. Okay. We are in a very unique industry. Pay attention to this, please. We are in a very unique industry in that when one of us sells, all of us sell. Okay. When you had a hot book and people start going to the shop, what do you think happens? Because now they got bit by the bug. Okay, you got a hot book, and these people are trying to get in there as much as possible to get other hot books, and guess what? They learn about other hot books. Do you know how many hot books are in the shop right now that are just waiting to be discovered? You get one big title that all of a sudden gets flaming hot, and you start getting millions of people running to the comic book shop. Okay, like what Turtles did. Guess what? Those same people discovered. They discovered Grendel. They discovered Spawn and yada 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 yada. All these other books that came out and launched, the second coming of the indie revolution. So this is what we are in a very unique industry, guys. The more I can help you become successful, the more you're going to help me become successful and your fellow creator. My best customers, listen to this. Not best, but my most passionate customers are not only people who love animals and read comics, but fellow creators. They're like, wow, this is really cool because it's getting them excited about their own book and how they could, be inspired to do stuff to their character or sell their books. The indie space is absolutely awesome. It feels great to sell indie comics, to create indie comics, to work with indie comics people. It's the best thing in the world, man. And we're fortunate in that we have talented I should say talented. I mean, legendary creators like Mike Barron, Chuck Dixon, Klaus Janson, Jim Steranko. These are all people that have really helped us out. They liked our book and they promoted us on their social media channels. I mean, when I first saw Chuck Dixon shouting out our Kickstarter, I was like, whoa, this is incredible. I can't believe this. I can't believe this is really happening. I actually reached out and I said,
Chuck is a cool dude. I did a stream with him before. He's real amazing. Laid back. Yeah. He's a cool guy, man. Yeah.
I actually reached out to him. I said, are you the real Chuck Dixon? I'm the real Chuck Dixon. I want to promote your book. I said, holy crap, that's awesome. And he gave us a nice little, Facebook post there. And obviously Mike Barron, he's my mentor. He's another legend, widely credited for putting the Punisher on the map. Klaus Janson, I mean, he's been a tremendous mentor and help from the beginning. Jim Steranko is somebody who I met on the convention circuit. Again, why it's important to get out there and meet people. And ever since I met the guy, he's been tremendous. He's been giving me enormous guidance. He's really one of the main guidance factors of this book here, Morality Play. He told me, listen, I met him at Big Apple Comic-Con, which is a nice collector's convention in New York City. And he took me aside. He said, listen, I love what you're doing with this Calico character. This is after I wrapped up Street Math, the first trade. He said, but I need to tell you something. Every character, doesn't matter who he is or who she is or they is, whatever, every hero has to have a hero's journey. And it's pretty clear to me, even though I love your character, this character is at the very beginning of his hero's journey. And boy, would it be great for you to start telling it that way, because you're at the start of the character's creation. And I really sat down and thought about that. And again, this is a legend telling me this. And that's what inspired Morality Play. So thank you.
And this is the kicker. Not to mean to cut you off, but this is the kicker about the hero's journey. This is what I learned. People love it.
Right.
I mean, you would think, okay, I need to try something different. No, don't. Follow that hero's journey. I can think about all my favorite movies, all my favorite comic books, all my top tier ones. They all follow the hero journey.
It's essential. It's essential. And, some stories get to it in different parts of, the story, right? So for us, me specifically as a writer, I wanted to start writing Calico right in the middle of his endeavors, right? He's going after people who abuse and kill animals, and really give the reader a nice bit of food to chew on for a while. A lot of people, when you tell them, hey, taste this, they haven't eaten this before, taste this, have a bite of this. And then what they do, a lot of them do this, Fado J, you've probably seen this before. They take a little bite because they're curious. They're a little trepidatious. They're a little deliberate. No, that's not the right way to taste something. The right way to taste something is to take a nice big, mouthful and really chew on it and get all the flavors and taste the textures. That's the right way to do it, because then you can walk away and say, okay, now I know what that was. I had a full experience, and that's what Calico Street Math was. Street Math was 8 issues of ground and pound action in New York City. Okay, that's an MMA term for you guys out there, ground and pound. Calico Street Math is one rough and tumble book. It gives you 8 issues. It's actually 9 because the last one is a double issue. It's 240 pages of Calico action. So you really get a firm grasp on the character. All right. And then morality play is now we're going to tell you what this guy's really all about here and what's driving this thing. Okay. And why he's doing this. So it's so important to do this. And again, we're at the beginning of our series here. And this is all foundation work that we're doing. And we're having a great time, Fatal J.
How many volumes are y'all in?
So we've put out, we have 14 issues.
Okay.
So if you look at this, for instance, this right here, Calico Street Math is issues 1 through 8. Okay. This is 1 through 8 right here. Here comes Calico. And then this is issues 9 through 14. Okay. So we got 14 stories, and then we got the manga as well, and we have another character that we're developing. You're going to hear a lot about our character pretty soon. Our second character. So
this the last question I got for you, man. Yeah. What is the future for Calico? Can you see Calico doing crossovers with the big three? Or what you have in mind when it comes to Calico's future?
All right. So what I'll say to that is, I do, but well before that, I think the character is in a place where, we see that different types of media are what attract the readership base. I read a very profound article in the New Yorker. I'm a literate guy, Fatal J. I'm a writer, so I read. And I read a New Yorker article by a gentleman who asked the question, whatever happened to, reading? It's a very recent article, as recent as last week. Like, why are people not reading? And his takeaway was that more people are leveraging YouTube channels, videos, audio. They're reading their books. They're starting with the book, but maybe they'll go into the anime. They'll go into an audio book, and this applies to novels as well. Where we used to consume content in this singular medium. Now somebody might start a novel, let's say, reading the first, couple chapters, and then they get busy with work and something just takes over their life. And now they're driving to work. They're hearing the audio of the same thing. So they'll consume that property as a book, as an audio download, as an anime, as a movie, et cetera, et cetera. So it's one story, but they're consuming it in multiple versions, not only because they like the story, but because it's their life. There's so much, there's so much competing for your attention. Yeah. So that, and with that in mind, that's what I see for Calico. I see the next eventual step for us as an anime. I absolutely see Hector Gil the Calico as an anime, fingers crossed on a streaming service like a Netflix or a Amazon. But truthfully, I think the best place for us is HBO, that platform. Do they call themselves HBO anymore? Is that
Max, HBO?
Okay, something like that.
I think they just went back to HBO Max. It's HBO.
Okay. All right. So I think that would be the perfect platform for us because this is, it's a pretty edgy series. Maybe Amazon, maybe, I don't know. But I think that's
I can see HBO though, that dark street gritty.
Yeah.
I can see HBO. Yeah.
I really think what they did with Spawn in the 90s is really where
that was dope. I swear, man, we got the same mind. Because as soon as I was finished saying that, I thought about that Tom and Fallen Spawn series.
Right.
HBO. That changed the game, man.
Oh, yeah.
I think I don't think it was anything like that animation wise from the West.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was something that clearly worked. And listen, when you talk about the way manga is sold, okay, again, remember we sell manga too. Manga is sold because people a lot of times, they're using the anime is the marketing vehicle for the manga, right? Yeah. So, and then here it's sort of like you have to justify the expense, right? How are you going to sell this manga? Who knows about it? Yeah, they know about it because of the anime. Look at all these kids reading manga now. Do you think they knew about this manga? No. Back in the day, I knew about Akira not because I saw an anime, but because I was going to comic shops, and those comic shop owners were open-minded about bringing new stuff abroad. That's how I learned about, Akira and, Fist of the North Star and, Crying Freeman, Go-Go 13. And then I saw the anime. I was like blown away by this stuff, right? Yeah. You old manga heads know what I'm talking about there. But, nowadays, kids, Fatal J, you know it. It's the streaming. It's the Crunchyroll. It's the Hulu. It's the Amazon. It's all this stuff. So that's where we need to be, Fatal J. We need to be streaming. And, man, let me tell you something. If we get a Calico anime, holy crap. Our characters, that's going to – I'll tell you right now, face-to-face, I'll tell you this, mark my words. If Calico gets an anime, it's going to be the bomb. Okay? It's going to be the bomb. It's going to blow up.
I know it's going to be the bomb, bro, because just this passion that you giving up this hour,
right?
I know once that animation hit that big screen, bro, you going to go 1,000% in then. You know?
1,000, baby. 1,001. We're going all in that, okay? So no Vaseline, I'm telling you. We're going all in with Calico. This is, so, and that, then you can do other things. But, for us, the main thing is, and again, you asked this question to me personally, and I appreciate it. How is it on earth that you get these comics this low, the price? And it's our passion for the cause. We truly believe in the message. We fight animal abuse through comics and manga. We're the only one doing it. We believe it's very unique. And we're not going to print 200-300 books. We're going to print thousands of books. And we're going to get a great price from a local printer that's using an offset, old school newspaper printer. Okay. Yes, when you read our comic books, you're not going to get those nice, shiny, glossy, expensive, comics that cost like, $2-3. No, you're going to get a comic book that you would get from back in the 1980s that was on newsprint. And I'm talking about that 35-pound newsprint. Okay. But yet we use the new color technology. So it does look amazing. But that's why we, our cost, our per unit cost. Go ahead.
But watch this, though. Watch this. Okay. Those old newspaper print comics is what everybody is wanting now.
Bingo.
So is it really about the paper, or is it about the story that people fall in love with? You know what I mean?
And that's what it is. It's the latter. And look at The Walking Dead. I mean, The Walking Dead, you put that book, when it was printed at that time they were sitting right next to these other books, and it was that black and white, raggedy book that was selling better than all those other ones next to it.
Yeah.
And it's all about the story. And you talked about the crossovers and all this stuff. I'm going to tell you personally, I'm not a big fan of crossovers and this and that. We will do that eventually in the future. Hopefully, fingers crossed, getting there. But we get tons of people, indie creators. Oh man, let's do crossover. Let's do this, that. Nah, brother, listen. We're at the beach nut stages right now. Okay, this is Gerber right here. We're at the beach nut stages. We are on apple, pear, banana nut. We have to set that foundation firm. Make sure we're doing layer after layer. Once we have that everything tight, then we can think about animation and getting the guy. And then eventually down the road we can do stuff like that. But man, you're already on, man. You're blowing up. No. It's not like that. We're not blowing up anything. What we're doing is doing the concise, hard, focused work to make sure our character is substantive, substance. Okay, not glitz, not bright lights and doing all this other stuff. What do you call this? Toys and no. Let's get this right first. And then when we have enough people that are like, whoa, man, this Calico thing is awesome. And by the way, everybody says that who actually gets it in their book. The only reason we haven't blown up yet is because we have a very small team. We don't have the big dollars to market the way we need to. But I'll tell you right now, if we had millions of dollars in marketing, social media, and all those other things, I have absolutely no doubt that we would be blown up and we would have an anime and be doing gangbusters right now. But you know what? That's okay. We're going to do the hard work. It's the Lord's work.
That's okay, brother, because I'm looking at your journey like the beginning, what you told me.
Yep.
You told me you went through them fights. You went through a lot of fights.
Yep.
Right now, you're in that comic book fight, but this is a great fight.
Absolutely.
You're going to get to that millions, bro. As long as you don't lose that drive that you got, and I know you're not going to lose it.
That's it right there.
Where you want to be because you're passionate, you believe in your product, You got a great cause. You giving back.
Right.
You're gonna get to where you want to, man. You're gonna get
we
you want to.
That's what it is. And thank you for saying that. But the bottom line is, Fatal J, is what exactly you said. It's the grind, it's the hard work. Yeah. My grandfather, God rest his soul, he always said, listen, I may not be the richest guy, but I feel rich because I work really hard and I feel fulfilled in what I do. We love animals, Fatal J. We love comics. This is a very important thing to us. So for us, we could price our comic books $3, $4, whatever, but we forego the money now so that we can target a very important cause, which is very, very important for us, all of us who work in Sigma Comics. And that is the fight against animal cruelty. It's a very real social ill. And in doing so, that's going to bring wonderful things for all of us who are working on it and the great message. So I really believe in doing good things in life will come back to you. So that's what we believe in, man.
Brother WH, I want to thank you so much, man. I appreciate you dropping that knowledge, dropping them jewels on us, man. Where can the people find your work, find your company, find your comics?
Go to sigmacomics.com. You can order comic books and manga directly from us. We do direct sales. You could also go to your local comic shops if they have Sigma Comics there. Go to our social media channels, Instagram, Sigma Comics, YouTube. Sign up and learn about what we're doing day to day, week to week, year to year, so that you can get caught up on the Here Comes Calico Sigma Comics story. And we appreciate channels like Fatal J's. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe for Fatal J. He's doing a wonderful thing. Anybody who's doing anything in comics is somebody who should love and respect because they're doing the Lord's work. Comics is all about the Lord, baby.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the first installation. My boy Double H will definitely be back. And we out of here, ladies and gentlemen. Peace.
You had the best work on the tape. It's unbelievable. Oh, you playing it? Now listen.